it's not the same. Okay, so why are the first correctly called triangle and the third one isn't? Well, you're going to want to say because there's something about them, about these two particulars that they share that justifies or like warrants us to call them triangles, but the third one doesn't have that, like in itself.
There's like an earlier issue with this. There's like an early issue with the setup, right? So it's like you're tokening a mental state that represents a triangle, right? So like it's not a triangle, right? Strictly like, and like this goes for most concepts that like, you know, your concept of X is not an X. But there's like some edge cases, you know, the concept of a concept is a concept, right? Like that's like an edge case, right? So there are some edge cases like that. But it's not, in general, it's not true that the concept of X is an X. So like it's not a, to be clear, it's not a triangle. But what we're talking about is that we have similar mental states, right? Like we're tokening similar mental states, and then we want to say like what, you know, how do we interpret the similarity between them, right? And then it just goes back to the same explanation as before with like the red ball and red truck or whatever. It's the same explanation. It's that there's a concept that both of those mental states satisfy.
Well, under conceptualism, like how we like.
Or conceptualism. There is a conceptualism that's not non-realistic.
Well, how the concept of a triangle exists is by there being like all these particulars.
No.
Concepts of triangles exist only when minds hold them.
The concept of a triangle just is a mental particular.
This is what I was trying to get to. Where like Zeleny thinks that like you have to start with these particulars if you're an anomalist, which you don't have to do.
Yes, they do. That's all that they think exists fundamentally, and everything else is constructed fictionally from them. Like.
No, but there need not be any particular to have a mental particular about it. That's the point.
That's right. We've got mental particulars. We've got concepts of unicorns. There are no fucking unicorns, but we still have that mental.
The point is that particulars stand in relations with other particulars, right? So like they have like I mean, I don't actually believe in like intrinsic properties, but you know, most people do. So according to most people, they would have intrinsic and extrinsic properties, right? The point is just that like it's extrinsically the case that like they stand in a relation with a certain concept, which is also a particular, and so does this other thing.
Right? Properties are universals.
What do you say?
Well, properties are universals. They would have tropes, not properties.
Well, I mean, I'm using property talk in a deflationary sense here, so I'm not talking about some reified notion of properties anyway. But I can just not say property. You know, the point is that like
the same with like relations, resemblance. Like if they would need to be clarified to be like a class of tropes. So like a resemblance, like the resemblance between my concept of a triangle and Judd's concept of a triangle is like a totally different resemblance. The resemblance between one chair and another chair, like those are two different things, like a ball and a tree.
The resemblance between the two mental states. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the resemblance also needs to be a trope. It can be like universal.
No, but I'm not saying. I'm just saying that the two mental states. Like if you think about a triangle, you guys think about a triangle. You guys have these two mental states. Yeah, each have a mental state, right? And I want to say like they have something in common, something like that. They're the same in a certain way, and like how do we understand that?
Subscribe for BQ.
And the point is to understand that by saying there's this other thing, which is the concept of triangle, or even just the concept of thinking about a triangle. Okay, something like that. You know, so it's a concept about a mental state, right? A certain type of mental state, right? And the two mental states in question stand in a satisfaction relation with that, you know, concept.
And how to do those two meta concepts Like, how are they the same concept? Because there's a third level.
Nobody's saying they're the same.
Connects them.
They're close. They don't have to be the same. Just close enough.
Which two are the same? Like there aren't two. I only have three things here so far, right? So we have like your mental state and Drev's mental state, right?
Yeah, and you're saying
I have a
thing that connects them, but that kind of thing exists also for other.
There's a third particular, right? If you were to then ask me like about some other similarity, like I am just going to say the same thing each time. You can say it's an infinite regress if you want to.
Yeah, we're just going to mention it seems that it's just going to go into infinite regress.
Yeah, I don't think it's a benign regress.
What's wrong with it?
In this case, it's a benign regress because the question is answered at each step. It's not like it's not like an IOU. It's just that at each step you're just repeating it's technically a new question. But it's given an answer every time. So like the fact that it's a regress is like, I don't see what the problem is, but there are vicious regresses where like the point is that the question can't be answered without moving to the next step, and then it's never answered. Basically.
But didn't Delaney say that like in order for Sully to have a particular of a triangle, mental state of a triangle, and not Jude to have a particular mental state of a triangle, there has to be triangles?
Yeah, he did say that, which doesn't make any sense, because like we both have concepts of unicorns. There are no fucking magical horned horses. Like that doesn't mean we can't generate a concept of it, right? But like it's also going to be true that your concept of a unicorn isn't going to be identical to mine, but they're both going to satisfy like magical horned horses.
And they're both
or be satisfied by. I'm sorry.
And they're both under at least Sully's view, they're both mental particular. Right?
Well, yeah, I agree. Right?
What I'm saying is that there is the abstract object of a unicorn that's instantiated both.
No, there isn't.
Mental state in your and in my mental state. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a basis for correctly calling them both a unicorn, but not calling other things.
No, I know you think that, but
no, but see, like our basis. Wait. What? Our basis is always still going to come down to having a concept of that abstract object. It has nothing to do with there actually being an abstract object.
Yeah, again, but the question is, how do you know that you're applying general terms correctly to that higher order concept? And you're going to say, well, because there's a yet a higher order concept. Well, how do you know that?
The point is that there being abstract objects doesn't give you an answer to like how you know about them or how you know you're applying terms correctly.
Well, the answer is there is a property of the object that accounts for why you call it red. Like there is actual property of redness in this ball and actual property of redness in this chair, and that's why we apply the term to both, because the redness as a universal exists in both.
Anyway, Bills, you can go.
Fuck you, Sully.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I mean, Zeleny, it sounds like you're just saying right? Like, I don't see. Yeah, it doesn't. It sounds like you're just.
Oh yeah, you didn't make an argument there, so.
There are no unicorns if I do not believe there are unicorns. Dead and dead.
Right? Basically.
What are we talking about, dead and dead?
Like, maybe you
repeat the claim that you need a universal for blah blah blah.
Yeah. So like, maybe you don't agree that things like you could have a concept without like there being some abstract object like actually existing, but like you're not giving a reason to think it's impossible other than just saying it's impossible.
I'm literally like pointing out the fact that when you say this ball is red and this chair is red, there is nothing that's shared by these two chairs. Like there is no thing that they both have that accounts for why you're calling both of them red according to you. Like there is no.
They both satisfy the concept.
Present in both.
Yeah, they both satisfy like the concept.
The same thing applies to the concept. Why are we calling this concept in your brain like Harry Potter and this concept in my brain, Harry Potter, because, and according to your view, there's going to be nothing inherent in either of those two concepts that they both share that accounts for why we're calling them Harry Potter. You're just going to say, as Sally said, well, there's a higher order concept called the concept of having a concept of Harry Potter that accounts which is why we're calling these two things Harry Potter, even though they don't share anything like inherent to themselves. Like that makes them both Harry Potter.
Well, I don't know what you mean by inherent to themselves, right? Because the thing that is going to be the reason that we'll say that your concept is the same as mine, right, is just going to be because like the relation between the concept and the referent, right? The thing that's being called, that has the name, right?
That's
And
just what
let me
was
finish my
explained
sentence.
That's not true.
Yeah, but what's the problem? I don't even understand. Like, you didn't point out an issue. I explained why, like, even if it turns out to be a regress, it's a benign regress.
But like, are you just upset because like it's the relation is the thing that's making us say that they're quote unquote the same and not like something in the concept itself? Is that your problem?
Yeah, that's the straightforward, common sense way that realism solves it. Like, why are we calling this object red and that object red? Because they both have the property of redness. That's it. But your answer is like, no. They don't have anything that they share in common. There's no like this common thing between them, this universal thing that they both have.
Yeah.
There's this third thing called, we made up that like we're gonna call both of them red. And this accounts for us calling them red, and that makes it true that they're both red. Okay?
This requires bringing in a lot more like metaphysical commitment than what I'm saying, because look, if you want to say red is a genuine ontic item that can be multiply instantiated, and it's like instantiated in red objects. All the other properties of said object are also like instantiated in that object, and then they can be taken apart. As in like you can say, here's this red property, and that's not identical with the red ball or something like that, right? So like for any object now, you just have this like enormous set of ontic items that are its property instances. It's somehow like inhere in it, and they can be like distinguished from the object itself, or you can say like it. So then you have this question of like, okay, do you have to go all the way down to like a substratum or like a bare particular, where you have like the object, which like because it's distinct from all of its properties as an ontic item, it's a bare particular because taken apart from all its properties, like
that's a secondary issue. Like you could have a notion of bare particular. You could have a notion of an object as a bundle of its properties. It doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, but okay, I don't. If you do a bundle, if you do a bundle theorist view, right? Now you have like questions about composition, right? It's basically like you're saying every object is like a bundle composite of properties, which are themselves like distinct individual, existing objects, right? And then I can talk about the property, the properties of the properties, and so on, And then I get some crazy like gunk thing going on for like every object. It's like its own little gunk universe.
There's no gunk. You just get a hierarchy. You just get a hierarchy of categories, which is like all of this is common sense. Like people will understand properties right away. People will understand higher categories. Like if you say like, oh, this is a dog. Dogs are mammals. Mammals are animals. Animals are physical objects. Physical objects are concrete. Everyone understands that you're doing a nested hierarchy, like of concepts, and you're going to get to some root concept of like a thing or whatever, like existent. Doesn't matter. Like, okay, why is that like weird? Like there are like these nested abstract objects. Like,
well, they're not themselves. I don't know. Well, you're saying that if you're a bundle theorist and you're saying properties are abstract objects?
Yeah.
Okay, so concrete objects are like made of abstract objects. Is that right?
Well, they would be instantiations of abstract objects.
Okay. So is an instantiated property an abstract object or no?
So if that happens to you and you want a second go at it, feel free to raise your hand. Time permitting, you will be invited back up onto the stage. Unlike many of the other rooms in Clubhouse, in the Critical Thinking Forum, we speak one at a time, we don't interrupt one another, and we do our best to treat each other with a degree of decorum and respect, even when we vehemently disagree. And for that, I thank you in advance. And if I or a moderator asks you a question, it's not an attempt to start a verbal fisticuff. It's just a question, a dialogue. So please take it as intended. So welcome to the Critical Thinking Forum. We're waiting for our guest, Wally Ferris, to arrive. So while we are waiting for that and for the top of the hour, I want to welcome also to the room Mary L.S. Annette, the other Mary, Maher Met, the other Larry, Anon, Dark, Les, Austin, Matt, L, Rico, David, Book. Welcome to the room. We'll get to those whose hands are up in a moment. Kowarski, Madi, Monset the Maestro, Olga, welcome to the room. Mirad, Sue, and Pearl, Danica, and Progressive Liberal, welcome to the room. Okay, if Wally is not here in the next 30 seconds, which will take us to the top of the hour, I will start as normal until he arrives, and then we will invite him up. I'll ask Scott to keep an eye out, help me keep an eye out for his arrival in the room to make sure we invite him up in a pop action in case I miss it. Just seconds away from starting officially at the top of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. And we are now at the top of the hour. Welcome to the Critical Thinking Forum. We are here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York time. Today's guest is not yet in the room. Wally Ferris, he's maybe having difficulty. He's never been on Clubhouse before. But for those of you who don't know, he is a former foreign affairs advisor to the President of the United States. And I invited him here to discuss the situation in Iran, which all of us are very obviously not just interested in, but concerned about. And so he has agreed to do so. If we haven't seen him here yet, means he's having difficulty getting into Clubhouse, which we all understand the problems of trying to figure out a new application as he is doing right now. So while we're waiting for his arrival, let's talk about a little bit what's going on in Iran. And I used a term today that is seemingly contradictory. I used increasingly diminished options that the president has. That's how I view it anyway, that his options are increasingly diminished because everything he's trying seems not to be working so much. They're pretty, the administration that is, pretty transparent these days, which is not something that we've perhaps enjoyed so much in the past, about this current strategy, not the original strategy, not the various iterations, but the current strategy. It's pretty obvious that the current strategy is the carrot and the stick. They are offering the carrot, and when the carrot isn't accepted, they hit them with the stick. And the theory here is, and the press secretary just said so yesterday, the theory here is if you hit them with the stick soon enough, you beat that horse into submission. To continue the analogy, here comes Waleed. You beat that horse into submission. We invited you up, Waleed. But I don't see you appearing on the stage. There he is. Hello. I knew we could make this happen. How you doing, buddy? So I was just giving a little introduction to what's going on, and I told folks who you are, former foreign policy advisor to the president, an expert on the situation in the Middle East, with a particular interest in the threat that jihad has on our society, and not just our society, but globally, of course. And I was suggesting that I've been using recently a contradictory term. I say increasingly diminished, or some variation thereof, that the president's options are increasingly diminished. And my observation, for what it's worth, which may not coincide with yours, of course, is that the president is trying both the carrot and the stick. And when the carrot doesn't work, he hits them with the stick. I think the press secretary suggested that yesterday. That's actually the current policy, trying to get them to the negotiating table, trying to get Iran to agree to something. Most importantly, I guess, immediately for the president is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. First of all, am I correct in my analysis? And secondly, is it really what you would advise him to do? Were you still in that position at the White House?
It's exactly what you're saying, but let me put it in perspective. Increasingly shrinking for the president is basically the time he has, if you consider the midterm elections, would be important for the future of the operation inside Iran. And most of us from all sides believe that certainly if one of the houses, one of the assemblies is gone, House or Senate, it's going to be extremely difficult for the president to carry on the war. It's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult. If he keeps even thin majorities, then the sky is the limit regarding what he wants to do with the scenery in Iran. Certainly, the regime knows that. The regime knows that very well. That's why their battle since January, since the first wave of strikes, then they offered negotiations. Not that we offered negotiations, the brokers offered negotiations, which means the regime, the goal has been basically to gain time. I've repeated on national TV maybe 60 times that the goal of the regime is to gain time, and that's what they're doing. I even put July as the benchmark. And July came, July gonna go, and that's why I feel, I presume, that the president now is going full steam. I am not sure what is the plan. I know that they have to degrade more and more, but the missing link, ladies and gentlemen, the missing link is the Iranian people. I am not sure we have a full plan. Our agencies may have contacts, stuff could be done, but a full plan starts always by recognizing the interim or the transitional government of the other Iran, the Iran to come. And that apparently, because it has to be public, was not done, which tells me that we can still do it. We're going to have to arm segments of the population. And let me say more, that there are some weapons that are already inside. Many of the millions, actually, of the Iranian youth have gotten training in their high school, military service, and they could be. But I don't see yet the strategic connection as the Allies had with General de Gaulle when he was in exile, and he had the Force Française Libre on the inside. We're not at this level, so that's why it's crunching. It is really crunching for the president.
Well, I've often suggested, and I do not profess to be an expert, but I do profess to be someone with great interest and well-read on the situation. I do have contacts, although, of course, lately limited inside Iran. I have a lot of contacts in Israel. And so I may be a little bit biased based on the perspectives that I'm getting from those folks. But I've always felt, and not just with this administration, but with previous administration, that there's been a misjudgment, a misunderstanding of the mindset. Did we lose him?
Yes, we did.
That's not good. Especially in the middle of my most excellent question. Let's give him an opportunity to maybe come back up. Let me tread water here just for a couple of seconds. Well, at least we got one good soundbite.
Can you contact him back channel on his phone or something?
Well, I'm sure he's trying to come back in. You know, I can check the back channel here in a second, but I'm sure he's trying to come back in. Look, guys, I said in the beginning, this is an experiment. I know they used to do this on Clubhouse all the time. They bring brand new people in, famous people in, interesting people in. That was how Clubhouse got its initial reputation. And for some reason, that kind of went by the wayside with Clubhouse. I don't know. People find different platforms. I have no idea. I still think for this kind of interaction, this is still the best platform. And I gotta presume that those folks went through some of the same issues, growing pains, if you will, as we are having right now. So let's continue the conversation without Waleed, and then he can jump right in as soon as he comes back. So, Scott, I was going to ask Waleed, well, you know the question I was going to ask, and that had to do with the misinterpretation, not just by this government, the misunderstanding by this and previous governments of the mindset of the Islamic fundamentalists who are running Iran. And I was going to ask him, at least his opinion, about where he thought we can actually even go vis-a-vis negotiations, because I think, at least from my perspective, there's a trust issue.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Gary? I don't know if this is on topic. You can flag me if I'm committing the Cardinals. But when I think about that, about misunderstanding the mindset, right? And I used to talk ad nauseum about the liberal society stuff. What's funny about that is, if you look at Trump's speech, which I'm sure he didn't write, no president writes their speeches, but I mean, he signs off on it and stuff. In Saudi Arabia, right? That was a speech that recognized this was not a sort of George Bush, Barack Obama, everybody loves freedom, the world wants liberal values sort of mindset. It was, hey, you do things differently. We're not going to come here and tell you how to run your culture, your society. You're prosperous and you've done it without Western do-gooder values. I'm editorializing a little bit, but, and if you look at his security document that came out, we talked about it last year, that was also very multicultural in its awareness, and it was a kind of a Huntington Clash of Civilization sort of framework where, again, it seemed to recognize that there were significant differences in the world and illiberal differences and cultural differences, and that was going to be taken seriously, that Western civilization, it talks about Western civilization in that document, and again, in kind of a Huntington way, which is, as I get older, there was a time in my life when I hated that book. And now as I get older, I find it more and more compelling. But, yeah, I thought what your friend Waleed was saying, too, was great about buying time, right? You got these people that don't buckle the way we would buckle. As we were talking about yesterday, just don't buckle the way liberal democracy would buckle, right? When you have to take poll numbers and stuff about a war, it's not the kind of operation they're running. And so, yeah, I think that it is interesting to misunderstand the mindset. And again, we're giving them time, which I think is an interesting thing that Waleed said, that's, you know, the time is on their side. It's not ours from Waleed's perspective. I found that really interesting. Okay, I don't know what else I have.
Well, you know, I want to jump on something that he said about his perspective, and I'm certain as a former foreign affairs advisor to the president, he has the contacts, some of the same contacts that he had while he was in office. These guys tend to, and gals tend to keep back channels going after they leave officialdom. And of course, he has his contacts in the Middle East, long-standing contacts in the Middle East. And he suggested, I think the direction he was going in was that there may be attempts for a support of a popular uprising in Iran. And we hear Alan and other expat Iranians raise this issue often. But I, for one, sometimes think, Alan, Amir, maybe he could speak for himself in a moment here. Is this just wishful thinking on your part? Or is this something that actually can occur? Remember, you're starting from a base like zero weapon. I cannot imagine, with the number of weapons that are available to the populace here in the United States. I mean, I'm from Michigan, and I know when it's hunting season, there are more armed individuals in the woods of Michigan and forests of Michigan that some countries have standing armies, you know? So there are a lot of people with weapons. I don't think it's possible, and I would say, thank goodness, for a popular uprising in the United States. I don't think it's possible. You can have skirmishes, you can have whatever one wants to interpret that happened on the Capitol, or in the Capitol on November the 6th. You can look at all that and say, look what's happening. But in reality, an actual popular uprising, I think we would all agree, is pretty much, let's just say, impossible here in the United States. Now, you're starting from a big point of zero in Iran. Although he suggested that there are weapons that have been secreted into the country and put in the hands of the young Iranians who are fed up with this regime. But, God, I gotta wonder, is that even possible?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, in the United States, despite all the guns we have, right? I mean, you'd have to have tanks and surface-to-air missiles, and I mean, look at just the sheer firepower, right? I mean, starting from where they're at. And this is what my Second Amendment advocate friends always remind me, right? Like, you can't stuff the stage of rebellion without guns. I think that's, and also the fear you have. I think not just guns, but the fear that not only does the regime have such asymmetrical force, such radical asymmetric force, but they're not knowing in your consciousness that they're not afraid to use it.
Sorry.
Right? That they'll kill tens of thousands of their own people in a weekend. By the way, I missed those protests, as you noted yesterday. I guess I just dialed out on social media. I missed the protests on campus. I'm sure they happened up at NYU. I just didn't see them.
Right. Very, very well said. Waleed, I'm glad you're back. I hope your your technical issues have been resolved.
I'm so sorry. I am. It's a technical issue. It's a new.
Well, I knew it. Look, you're brand new to Clubhouse. Some of us who have been here a long time sometimes have technical issues. So no apologies.
All the time that I promise. All the time that I promise, I'm with you, gentlemen, ladies.
Yeah, I know you are, and also believe me, all the people who are listening are absolutely understanding, because at one time or another, we've all suffered similar issues. So don't worry about it. I want to get back to the point that you were making, and that is, and I was asking Scott that, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. They're starting from basically a baseline of zero. There's no Second Amendment there. How do you actually have optimism that there could be some kind of a popular uprising?
Well, input number one is I am deeply connected to the various elements, not just one major element, various elements. Should it be the older ethnic, territorial, regional uprisings? Of course, everybody mentions the Kurds, but I also have been interacting with the Arabs in the Ahwaz or Khuzestan, with Baluchistan, and that for the last 10 years. It's not only yesterday or the day before. And it seems to me that those components have already prepared themselves for a form of a guerrilla, but they have expected. See, at the end of February, they have expected, when the president made those posts asking all Iranians, including the Persian majority, which is the most important, that they need to continue to march. They need to identify their oppressors, which means, in diplomatic language, there will be trials, there will be courts for mass killings and war crimes, so on and so forth. And obviously, the term, help is on the way. All of this was basically convincing the Iranians, millions of them, to take to the streets. They did. 52 or 53,000 people were killed. That's, in sociology, that's the ultimate indicator that the population will rise. There is no way they're gonna coexist with the regime. The problem is that the regime has immediately went to Qatar and to others and told them, let's offer something so huge to the administration. And the administration, obviously, when they decided to negotiate, the president said, okay, we're gonna give them a chance, thinking that it will be resolved in a few weeks. What did the regime do? They went back to the population and crushed the cadre. They have been executing almost 2 or 3 a day, or 4 a day since then. So they did a big maneuver, which is to calm down the clash with the United States, obtain that negotiation, which took too long, many months, made some mistakes, because I think their lobby in the United States is telling them, look, everybody wants the deal, Democrats and some Republicans wants the deal, so therefore don't just get the minimum, try to get the maximum. And that explains why our brokers will come back to the administration and say, well, they are determined, they want to do business with us for $300 billion. That's dizzying. And it took that long to realize that the regime is not in the business. The regime was in the business of pushing us to July, and now, of course, they're working on August to get us weak. Us meaning the supporters of the president weak before losing the election, as they thought. That was their plan. Now, it's critical between now and, I would say, mid-September, what the decision in the Oval Office is going to be. And the president said that we're going to crush their strategic ability to recover. That's what they're trying to do now. And we know a few months ago, the administration was saying we destroyed the Air Force, Navy. I made that statement earlier on in the winter that they lost the strategic weaponry. What they have are about 475,000 militiamen, the IRGC and the Basij, and some of the Mukhabarat, meaning the intelligence services. That is a continental problem, meaning, yes, we took out all these weaponry systems, and yes, they said, okay, now land here and fight us. So this is how they convince themselves and us that the American public is not ready for a fight on land. And on the other hand, they are disarming, or they are deterring the civilians. It's going to take the president to decide that he's going to send our forces to destroy the remnant of the strategic ability. And meanwhile, as I said, the missing link, which I think is going to happen, but I'm not sure when, what day, what week, we're going to engage with the Iranian opposition and people and have them take to the streets.
Why? And the first question is, why did he? And the second question is, should he have why did he take the foot off the gas after giving so much hope to the Iranian?
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I can't even answer the question because I'm not inside the wall. But I have my connections with the administration. I served as an advisor early on, so it doesn't count much now. But from simple analysis, as I have analyzed the Obama-Iran deal, because we have now the information, we don't have the information about the negotiations now. I do trust the president that when he feels that he has been betrayed by the negotiators, with the Iranian or the regime negotiators, he's going to explode, and he is exploding. So whatever the regime now think they have to do to take back the confidence, the confiance of the president, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. But at the time, follow me, and that's something very logical. Those who put pressure on the administration are of two kinds. Those companies and the insurance companies for the boats who were trapped in the Gulf during the last clash, they put humongous pressure on the administration, and the president is close to this milieu. He knows them well. They put pressure, saying that we're going to have a serious crash in economy, and that would translate into a economic problem here, not at 3-4 months from the election. That's number one. But number two, probably more important, is the fact that the same companies, the same financial interests who got engaged in the Obama deal have approached the regime. This is between information and assessment. I would say more assessment than information, but it has merit. Approached the regime and told them, look, we are ready. Because companies have no policies. They don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. And the numbers that we see, we can convince the administration and those close to the administration to present is close to $300 billion. That's twice the size of the $150 billion of the 2015 deal. Now, when you have that force, it's a lobby by itself. It's a lobby by itself, meaning it would present the case that the regime is going to moderate, that we killed, 2/3 of 2 generations of leaders. We have, or the analysts who made that conclusion said, we killed many of their leaders. They are afraid. They are on the run. And that's what mainstream academia and media have been trying to convince us. If you tell them this is a good deal, you'll survive, we'll make money together, then they may come. They came. And when they came, they barely signed the MOU. And the MOU did not do much details, but they revealed to us what was behind the MOU. It was $24 billion go straight to the regime. We assume with $24 billion, they're going to immediately calm down and not go to war because they'll lose that cash. But the most important one was the $300 billion. So with the imagination, what we can do with the $300 billion, well, we will have time to see how we can convince the regime to accommodate the population. That's where the theoreticians of that action have thought and were told by the academia. But the regime itself has a pressure group on the inside. The IRGC radicals, the Basij radicals, they fell, meaning those negotiators on the Iranian side or on the Republic side felt the radicalization that took place over the past 46 years. So there is a chunk inside Iran, and that chunk is in the IRGC mostly, that told their negotiators, yes, we will do a deal, but we don't want to appear as we have lost. So the narrative started in Iran by the regime. We're going to sign a deal with the Americans. The Americans have lost. That's why they are offering a deal. And we found out, actually, our intelligence first services, and then the president. The president is very pragmatic. They don't give a deal, we're going to give them hell. And that's what's happening now. But having said that, if we strike the remnants of their forces, and I'll repeat maybe for the 4th time, the only segment between us and victory is to mobilize the Iranian opposition. And to conclude very quickly here, we may also count on weapons that have been sent by the Artesh, which is the classical army of Iran, smaller in size, but they're still inside the country, and they would close in. That would be the equivalent of the French resistance and the Allies meeting mid-distance.
Well, it's interesting, that last comment, while you mentioned the French resistance and the Allies, the president actually did not put together what one of his predecessors called a coalition of the willing. Was this something unattainable, or was this something that he miscalculated, thinking that we could do it alone with the help of Israel? What's the story about that? Because I've always felt, and I may be wrong in my assessment, that if he had been able to put together a coalition of the willing, this might have had a different outcome by now.
That's the greatest question. Here's a timid answer to that, because we still don't know much about the details of what happened, but one can imagine, one can project it. We know how these things function. We know the lobbying. We just spoke about it. The coalition of the willing this time was more than enough. Power, the sheer power of the United States is huge. And the sheer power of Israel. Israel is a small United States, but on the East Mediterranean coast, and both together, our two aviations and navies and missile force have, without putting troops on the ground, been able to destroy what I call the strategic ability of that regime. We were very close. In my own numbering, quantitative analysis, I would say we were at 75 to 80% of the win. To a certain point where some officers of the IRGC have been trying to negotiate through third parties, including Oman, including at the time Qatar, to see how they can, they message actually the administration saying, okay, if we break away from the regime, if we bring down that regime, they were lying obviously, but they were concerned at the same time. What would we have once that regime will go and we come? And you remember, some of our officials, including the administration, said, well, we're talking to the right people. Right people meaning those officers who sent messages and said they're ready to do it. They were psychologically very close from chaos. Imagine we had the demonstrations not happening in January, but the armed demonstrations happening in February or March. It would have been very different. Now, your question is very accurate. Did we have a plan from the beginning? And I agree with you. I think we had a will, but not the plan. How do we know? Because the component of that plan did not tell us that they have been contacted and that they are going, on the ground to organize. Whatever they've done on the ground, especially the Kurds and some of the Persian element, they've done it on their own. But I am quite sure that our agencies informed the administration that if you want it, we can make it happen. And by that time, the negotiators, I call them the brokers, may have been able to bring messages of good news, meaning the regime is ready. Didn't we hear from the president multiple times? We have reached them. They are messaging us. They are ready to sign. They are ready to negotiate, translate this into reality. He doesn't do the phone calls. Actually, his envoys are doing the phone calls. So the remnant or pieces of the regime told the envoys, tell your president we're ready. And they did it at the time where they felt that their towers are going to go down. They waited till they lost all what they've lost. And then they have been crushing the population. They were really afraid that even after 52,000 people killed, multiply this by 5, imagine how many vendettas, probably about, you will have 200,000 to 300,000 Iranians on the front with their weapons. It doesn't matter if they had missiles. Missiles can win a revolution. AK-47s, individual weapons, especially from when Israel, at the end of that confrontation, started to target the checkpoints, the security checkpoints of the besieged, the lower militia, the lower SS, I call them, and the IRGC are the higher SS. They started to have losses, and the Israelis sent those birds, the drones, the mini drones or the medium drones. Every time the security, the Khomeini security would shoot against the population, the demonstration, the mini drones will go down and will eliminate besieged in the middle of Tehran. That was almost the pre-collapse, the pre-chaos. And we kind of saved them by giving them all these chances.
So I'm going to ask this question that will probably reveal my bias, and so I apologize for that a little bit in advance, but it seems to me that the president has been unsuccessful based on the pronouncements and all these quotes, especially from the Republican side, while they are anonymous, but they come from credible journalists who cover the Hill on a daily basis. that they're telling, not just the Democrats, but the Republicans are telling those seasoned journalists who they trust that the administration, even though they've been coming up to the Hill and having closed door sessions, hasn't made a case for the funding of all of the above that you have mentioned. Is that a roadblock?
It's a roadblock, but I have followed the systems of the Islamic regime. Guess when? Since it started, I was at dinner with my brother. I was like a kid in Beirut, and so for all these decades, I followed their system, how they do it. They are very strong. If the population hasn't made a decision to go against them, we could send all the missiles we have, short of nuclear, obviously. We could send all the the bombers that we have. Yes, they would incur more and more and more losses. But like North Vietnam, as long as they will be receiving from China and Russia and others resupplying, they would continue. They have two enemies. If we put troops on the ground, they will collapse. But our public opinion has been so much radicalized against the idea. Okay. But if we arm the population basically, if they start a revolution, our public is not going to say, oh, stop the population because this will affect us. No, then that would be legitimate. So their fear, the extreme phobia that the regime has, is not a super arming of just clashes inside Tehran and 5 cities. Just clashes in Kurdistan, in Arabstan or Khuzestan or Ahvaz, or in the southeast, in the Baluch. It's enormous. Baluchistan is as large as almost as France or maybe Spain. If other communities start to go in, if dissidents from the Artesh, imagine just 2 regiments, one regiment from the Artesh, which is the regular army, which doesn't like really the militias. If all of these at the same time, and we are bombarding, just imagine the scene, which didn't happen yet. We are in the air, hitting, and every time the RGC is coming close to a neighborhood that would have, let's say, been taken by the guerrilla, then Israelis and Americans from the air will hit them. The revolution, it won't be alone this time. The revolution will be marching with smaller weapons, lighter weapons, but up in the air we'll have the heaviest weapons ever that could destroy. So we will be doing, I don't like the comparison, but what we've done in Libya, I don't like at all for other reasons. We've done it for the wrong reasons, but nobody could stop the population with AK-47 and then having, B-2s in the air supporting them. That will take them. That's what happened in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, yeah, I was about to say in Afghanistan, we were on horses, right? Some of the special forces were on horses, and then of course behind them the Northern Alliance was walking, and the mass of the Taliban and the other forces were withdrawn because we were hitting them from the air. We had our commandos or special forces in the valleys and the cavern, the movies and the books on this, and then the Northern Alliance moving with very old equipment. And then they crumbled, the Taliban. They fled to Tora Bora, so on and so forth. In Iran, something similar but much wider and bigger in size. And I said something in the beginning. I think I'm going to re-emphasize that because I learned about it only a few weeks ago. So it seems that the regular army, the Artesh, in the essence, do not like those 2 militias, but will not move unless they hear one thing. And that's one of the missing links. President Trump, from the Oval Office, addressing the Iranian people, for whatever, connections they could have, that it will get there, and telling them to march. Because they have marched when the president posted 3 little posts in the beginning of the confrontation. They marched. 53,000 people were killed. If he addressed them at the same time giving the orders for our air forces and bring in the Israelis, it has to be united. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu together doing this. You're going to have then an absolute support by moderate Arab countries. You were, so not on this show, but other shows discussing Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the Iranian opposition, the opposition inside Iraq, the Kurds. You will have the mother of coalitions, the feasible coalitions, to march at the same time against the regime. They will crumble, in my view.
Are the Gulf states developing an appetite to do something since they've been under attack?
I couldn't hear you well. Did you say the Gulf states?
Yeah, I know I set up my audio incorrectly today, and I apologize. And so, see, even I have problems with the technical aspects of it. I said, are the Gulf states developing an appetite for retaliation now?
They have the appetite. They have the history of aggression, especially Saudi Arabia, even more than the UAE or, and Bahrain. Bahrain, there were attempts of coups by the pro-Khomeinists inside Bahrain. Bahrain has a problem with 20% of its population, not just because they are Shia, but because they are penetrated by the Khomeinists and Hezbollah and etc. But let me address Saudi Arabia. It's a big square in this equation. Saudi Arabia was sandwiched between the missiles coming from Iran, the Khomeinists, and the missiles coming from Sana'a, from the Houthis. The Houthis are at 200 kilometers, maybe 100 miles or kilometers, I don't know, from Mecca, not from Riyadh, from Mecca. And the Saudis have suffered. But let me say one thing about the Saudis, because it's not well known within the American public. There are still struggles within the kingdom. There are still struggles. Remember, the Saudis have organized for President Trump in May 2017, the mother of all conferences, where they gathered for him, 52 Arab and Muslim countries. 52, minus Qatar, because Qatar had a different policy. But the bulk of the Arab and Muslim world was there, led by, at the time, the influential MBS, who was deputy crown prince. Now he's crown prince, and he is the prime minister of Saudi Arabia, and I don't know, but soon enough he will become the king of Saudi Arabia. So they have offered the U.S., and President Trump took that offer and delivered two things. At least one was the withdrawal from the Iran deal was huge. It hits the regime in Iran, it hits the Europeans, their companies a lot. And second, what is very important, it designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization, redesignating it. Plus, at the end of his first term, he eliminated the head of the Quds Force, Soleimani, which is enormous. We were on the offensive. They were with us. The Saudis even more than the UAE. Now, at this stage, because of the 4 years of Biden demobilized the U.S. support to the Saudis at the Gulf. The Saudis were under the pressure by the Biden administration, and they were asked to withdraw from Yemen and to stop the bombing on Yemen. It was a huge setback for them. They were asked also to disengage from their war, along with the UAE, against the Muslim Brotherhood. So what remained in Saudi Arabia, the faction that follows MBS, MBS is with us. He's with the West. I'm not concerned about anything they do with China or Russia or this little aspirin deal they did with the regime in Iran over the past 2 years. They want to be our allies. And to those who were not certain that Saudi Arabia will come to the Abraham Accord, of course they're going to come. Their ministers told me this when I was foreign policy advisor. We go back to 2016. I sat with them in New York, and they told me we cannot wait. The deputy crown prince, they cannot wait. But problem is, the 4 years of the Biden administration demobilized them. They were concerned because there are remnants of the Muslim Brotherhood in some quarters of Saudi Arabia. And it looks like some of them are, let me not go too much into the detail, but some of those quarters who operates from some agencies in Saudi Arabia are in connection still with the father, with the king. The king is ailing, but those classical, traditional, Islamist inclined who are against all these reforms are still around. So MBS cannot operate if we have not made a decision to bring down the regime. Because some of them told me over the past 2 months at least, see, we told you. You guys in America, you encourage us to confront the regime in Tehran, and suddenly your brokers come with a draft for a deal with them. We cannot play with our national security like that. So I would say at this point in time, the Saudis, though they have two wings, if we are serious, if we arm the Iranian people, if we mend fences with Israel, do that white confrontation with the regime in the goal of bringing it down, not to bring it to the table of negotiations, Saudi will change. Saudi will be on the offensive. And I am interested, not interested, I'm surprised that the UAE has been engaged militarily. They have been doing most of the operations across the Gulf from the Arab side because they are the bankers. They have a lot of money which has been deposited by private sector in Iran. And they don't want to lose this ability. They don't want to see the regime coming and take it out that money. And then Dubai is all about stability. So they have more interest than the Saudis as well. So in a summarized way, yes, the Gulf will be marching not behind us, but to our sides if we decide that big overlord campaign, meaning the Normandy, meaning getting all the allies at the same time coordinating against the regime.
And before I let you go, and you've been very generous with your time, I got two things to say. The first one shows my bias, and the second has to do with what you did up on Capitol Hill yesterday. I want to give you the opportunity to tell us about that. But you and I are in accord. This is Gary's bias here. You and I are in accord when it comes to the removal of the regime, because that's the only way you can stop these jihadists from terrorizing the Middle East. And as you point out, they're not just terrorizing Israel, they provide a threat. Look at Jordan. There's a huge threat to the Jordan kingdom there by those who would like to overthrow them because they don't see them as being carriers of the Islamic torch in the manner in which they feel the Islamic torch ought to be carried. So I would just add, to me, I'm with the Iranian people. The solution to all this is removal of the regime, and I think the president hopefully, starting to understand that after all these failures at the negotiation table.
I agree with you 100%. I knew him, of course, I was his advisor for a period of time, and he's let me put it that way, he's a real estate strategist, not just to sell and buy and, building, but he sees it as a map. He understands maps very well. When I showed him, I'm just going to give a little bit of something that happened when I was advising him the first time in a briefing in New York, before he wins, I brought a lot of maps. I love maps. And I put them, and he said, give me the information on the maps. He can see the balances of power. He can see where the oil is. He can understand, So he will be sensitive if he has, I'm sorry to say it, the right advisors at the right time. But then you have another pressure that comes, Mr. President, we can get the deal. He loves deals, but he knows the ground. And he knows when those deals are lying deals, that they're not going to get him what he wants. So having said that, I would say that I imagine the president now, in his conversations with Pete Hegseth, with Secretary of State Rubio and others, and still the Israelis, he understands that this regime is not going to give him what he wanted, which is a partnership, business, etc. He knows that they're lying. So now he still hears, with one ear, he still hears what the negotiators are bringing, but the way he's giving those orders to destroy the regime, to do that, indicates that he's tilting towards engaging fully. I hope his advisors, I wish I can be an advisor now, I hope his advisors are presenting to him logical ways and very quick ways to mobilize the population, the people of Iran, and to close in with our military.
Well, I held you much longer than I promised to, so again, I want to thank you for your time. But before you go, please tell folks, because it didn't get the kind of coverage it deserved, yesterday's launch of the International Freedom Coalition on Capitol Hill and what that has to do with our fight that everybody here agrees is necessary against global jihadism.
Let me begin with the conclusion. Thank you for giving me this window to speak about an enormously important event. I was there, obviously, but historically speaking, this was the launch of the largest, widest coalition of NGOs, popular groups, political resistance in many, many countries in North Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, and elsewhere, who have formed resistances against the jihadists. all jihadists, all kind of jihadists, Taliban, Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. It's the first time that globally, what they call globalized intifada in New York, right? They mean globalized jihadist intifada. There is a response by civil societies. This is unique. Obviously, they have Israelis, you have Lebanese, you have Druze, Alawites, Kurds, Yazidis, and then you move to Sudan, Christians and others in Nigeria, all the way. There are dozens and dozens of movements. This has been a very patient, strategic work we were part of for the last many, many years. It just accumulated recently, and a meeting was called upon by Charles Jacobs, also a veteran of human rights from Boston. He started 25 years ago by going to Sudan and by the freedom of Black Sudanese, Southern Sudanese from their capture. It's a whole wonderful project that is now underway, and they have formed a confederation of all what they call the victims of jihadism. It has never happened before. It happened on a smaller scale. So like the Muslim Brotherhood or the jihadists have an international network, like the communists before, they had the Comintern, the organization of all the communist parties around the world. There is now a confederation of NGOs, of political fronts, of almost all those who are resisting any form of jihadi oppression around the world, from, guess where? From northern India to Afghanistan. Give you a quick example. Afghanistan, they are the remnant of the special forces of the Afghani army, which was trained by us. We're not going to let any piece of our resistance movements around the world, civil society first, but even guerrilla if needed, be forgotten, be marginalized. So they're all coming, and actually they came yesterday, including obviously another dimension, which is those who have been victimized by the jihadists in Europe. So in Europe, civil society, how many community groups have been trying to stop, or not even trying to stop, expressing their views, and have been under violence by jihadists already in Europe, and of course in the United States. That big ensemble was declared yesterday. It received enormous support from the communities from the Atlantic Ocean till China, coming together, and there will be a large number of plans and projects with the U.S. government, with the U.S. Congress, duplicating and connecting with couple caucuses, and as well as the European Parliament. So I hope we're going to have a lot of information to be shared with you, ladies and gentlemen, through this caucus as well, through your group.
So I apologize for coughing. I didn't realize my microphone was open. That's a Broadcasting 101 no-no, and so you can mark that down as the second technical faux pas on my part today. But the interview was fantastic. Folks, the main chat linked above on Facebook Messenger, I put a link there just now to the International Freedom Coalition website, which I encourage you all to go to right now and peruse. Wally Ferris, so thankful that you were able to overcome the technical hurdles that Clubhouse presented you and persevered. And this was a terrific presentation, and you're welcome here anytime that you have something to say. Just tap me on the social media shoulder and I'll set it up.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Waleed.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the clarity and your commitment to tell the story to all of us.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest, and I'll be happy to come back.
We will be happy to hear from you anytime. Thank you, Ali. So, folks, you heard from the horse's mouth somebody who actually knows what he's talking about, unlike me, who pretends to know what he's talking about.
Not true, Gary. Come on.
But I was happy to know that he affirmed a lot of my observations. It's always good to hear that from somebody who we can trust as a source. So with that, it's your turn to speak, ladies and gentlemen. So we will start with Scott, followed by Marshall.
Yeah, can you come back to me?
Absolutely. Marshall, followed by it.
It was quite interesting. I think
got found, the machinations of the administration, probably the most interesting part of that. He at least seemed to have an idea of what Trump was thinking. And that's more than I have, so that's nice.
Yeah, I kind of like the anecdotal aspects of his presentation where he kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit so we could see what goes on in the Oval Office in the mind of the president. I had not heard, other than from our Iranian friends who join us on a regular basis, including Alan, that this popular uprising is something that is seriously being considered. He laid out a blueprint. I don't know how accurate it is, but he's obviously closer to this because he lives and breathes it. Would that be something if there were to be a popular uprising? I think he intimated that if there was a popular uprising, it would force the hands of Congress. He didn't say that, but I think it would force the hands of Congress to fund whatever the United States feels needs funding, Marshall, whatever the president does it.
Yeah, I imagine so, yes. If it turns out that way. I worry that it's Ahmed Chalabi all over again. Ahmed Chalabi persuaded us that Northern Iraq was good, the Kurds would come out, and we ended up betraying the Kurds. And so I hope what we have heard really does demonstrate the thought in the Oval Office. That would be very nice to hear.
You know, he says he wishes he was an advisor now to the president. And I would say the president needs an advisor such as him to properly articulate to Congress and to the public the vision, because he agreed with my preparation that this administration has not been particularly clear in articulating that, and that's what causes the pushback, I think, a lot of it that we see. One of the other things that he talked about, and I was unaware of this, and I thought I was pretty well looped in. Maybe Abby knows about this, and let me go to this one.
Yeah, I'm ready, by the way, after Abby. I'm good.
Okay, sure. Abby, you missed it, but he said that in the initial prosecution of this war, the Israelis were using medium-sized drones. Every time the Revolutionary Guard or the militias set up checkpoints, they got attacked by the Israelis. Every time they turned their weaponry on the populace, killing, as we now know, more than 50,000 people, the Israelis were there pushing back at the oppressors of the Iranian people. Now, maybe the people in Iran recognize that, and maybe you are looped in to a greater degree than I am, or most of us are, with regard to this. But to me, this was news.
I didn't hear a lot of it, but I do know that the Israelis had a drone factory in Iran, that they were actually manufacturing drones there for their use. So it could have been part of that whole operation. I don't know. I definitely would like to find out. I'm going to yield to the next person because I didn't hear a lot of what he was saying, but that one would be interesting to discover if that's where those drones came from.
Thank you, Abby. We'll go to Scott, followed by El Normal.
Yeah, Gary. Great. I hope he comes back. I mean, it's interesting to have an expert like that. I give him thumbs up. He was fantastic. Very optimistic about the United States coming on board, I thought. I was just looking up, the most optimistic polls are that 60% of the countries against the war, right? It goes as high as about 70, depending on the polling sources. So, I mean, to say that if we saw an uprising, I mean, again, I think I think what you were saying is and I was just repeating you. The unlikelihood of the uprising with no guns. I mean, that's just it's just difficult, right? I mean, it's just when you have not just a heavily armed regime, but one that people know are not shy about using them, not shy about killing tens of thousands of their own people in a weekend. I mean, that's just a weekend at the office for these people. And again, as we noted before, I was thrilled to see all the protests at places like NYU when that stuff happened. It was wonderful. Students are very conscious of global injustice these days. But I think that's it was interesting. I thought also you contextualized Trump very well. The map stuff, right? I think you want to get to show real estate, and that was a very interesting insight, right? That how different presidents think, and just how personality shapes people, right? Like how the team of rivals people versus the real estate people versus it doesn't matter the temperament of the person in the office, not just the information you're getting, but just the way they see the world emotionally, psychologically. That was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is. I appreciate his optimism, right? I don't know that I share it. I don't know I don't know that where we go from here. And again, this is not to diminish a significant weakening of the conventional forces of the Iranians, right? I mean, I think we could continue probably to do that, right? I think if Congress will fund it, which again, that's another question that we have to consider as we assess where the conflict's going. But if Congress would fund it, I think we could pummel them. But as we talked before, will that bring them to their knees and doesn't get us closer to the nuclear dust? I call it the nuclear dust. Doesn't get us. I don't know that it gets us closer to that. I don't know what the end game is here. I don't know what a victory would look like. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm just saying I don't know what it is, right? What is it? Is it? We talked about. Is it regime change? Is it simply détente? I mean, is it after we've pummeled them, getting to a point where this regime is demoralized enough that it will deal, that it will be less of a pariah? I don't know. I mean, these are open kinds of questions. I mean, I think the president certainly seems to believe that's what's on the other side of the game for him, of the actions they're taking right now for him, right? That they're going to buckle and then they'll be willing to deal. And I mean, that would be great if we get a favorable deal. I mean, it's been costly. It's been costly, and I think, as we've said before, ad nauseum in this room, I think that the American people, I mean, the rallying around. This is post-Afghanistan, post-Iraq 2. Post-Iraq 1, I think the American people would have been in a much different place. That's not to say that you can't bring people along, maybe, but that's certainly not Trump's skill, right? I mean, of all the skills and personality quirks and strengths and weaknesses he has, this is not in his wheelhouse, right? Bringing people along, especially the unconvinced, the middle, the possibly persuadable. That's not who Trump is, right? Trump is a go to the base, rally the base. He's not somebody that's a consensus builder. So yeah, I don't know, guys. Those are my thoughts. Great guests. Love it when you have guests. Keep them coming, my friend.
Thank you for that, Scott. We'll now go to El Normal, followed by Emil.
Hi there. I will keep it uncharacteristically brief. This was a coup, Gary, for you and for us, and for Mr. Fares, Mr. Walid June, which is a term of affection in Farsi. What an encouraging presentation. What a great perspective. I'm delighted to hear his inside view of the solidity of our coalition, including the United States and the Gulf nations and Israel against jihad and against the Islamic Revolutionary Genocide Corps. The Persian people are a noble and brilliant and millennia old people with wonderful art, wonderful cinema, wonderful food, wonderful culture, wonderful music and theater that are under the heel of this oppressive, bizarre, suicidal, apocalyptic regime. They're not even indigenously from Persia, these crazy people. And they need to go, and the Persian people need to be free, as do all the Iranian people, including the Baluchi people, and the Yazidi people, and the Baha'i people, and everybody else they've been oppressing. And the people of the region need to be free. Lebanon, of Hezbollah, armed and funded and trained by this horrible regime. And Syria, they're already out of. Yemen, they need to leave. Iraq, they need to leave. The United States, they need to leave alone. Europe, they need to live alone. These crazy people need to go, this IRGC. And Gary, thank you for bringing this note of encouragement as we head into Shabbat. And thank you to Mr. Waleed June, who took his time to share this with us. And please, many more, Gary, and let's join that coalition for freedom against this horrendous attempt at worldwide jihad. Finally, some encouragement after the betrayal of my party, Gary, the Democratic Party, and the horrible mistakes made by both, unfortunately, Barack Obama, for whom I voted, and Biden, for whom I also voted. How they can be wrong, so wrong-headed, and so treacherous, I do not know. But let's turn it around. I'm surprised to hear how highly he spoke of President Trump, but then I am delighted to hear it. And I'm wishing us all success in this struggle against oppression. Thanks again, Gary.
Thank you for those kind words, Norm. It was tempered. He did point out diplomatically that this is not the art of the deal, buying and selling an apartment building or a hotel in New York City. You're dealing with a different type of mindset, and the president, he says the president went in and said, look, we can all win from this. And it sounds great. Anybody else would have grabbed it. It's actually a lifeline to them. But that's not how they think. And he's now starting, the president, as Waleed told us, is now starting to understand that. And I think most importantly, when he characterized it, he basically said, not in these words, the president's getting pissed. And I think we all know what happens when the president gets pissed. And I don't think it's a pretty outcome for the people he's angry at. So let's see where this all goes. I will note that one of the things that Waleed Ferris points out is that this is not just about Iran. It's not just about Israel, as many people are trying to frame this. This is not even just about the region. This is about jihadism globally. It's a global network. And now we have formed it, I think he's at the helm of this, the International Free Coalition. There are representatives of jihadism, including militant Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, Americans, Europeans, and other groups from across the world. This is valuable if for no reason that they may be powerful enough to take this message and re-educate people who have been led astray by propagandizing as to what we are dealing with. When, I remember covering a symposium at the United Nations, and the lady's name immediately went right. This the beautiful African woman. She was an international model who was forced into Jacksonville, Jubilee. And with this, describe what it's like under this fundamentalist Islamic torture of people. I got sick to my stomach and it brought tears to my eyes. That so many women are through all of this. This is the real genocide that's going on in the world. And the lies are repeated, and we learn this during if you tell the lie over and over and over and over and over again, it becomes a truism and people believe it. Your only real counter. We're not going to pick up arms. Norm isn't going to pick up a gun. I'm not going to pick up a gun and stop the jihadists. Our voices, all of us, whether people we associate with are oppressed, or more importantly, even if they are not, our own people aren't being oppressed. Our voices are so important in this fight against global jihadism, because that's what it is. And I pray that this group is successful in getting that message out. And we're not talking about unintelligent people. They're not dumbheads. Some of the people who I've written about are lovely, lovely individuals. You would think that some of the words coming out of their mouths shows that they are full of hatred. No, it's actually, for many people, their misguided commentary is motivated by concern because they don't know any better. And in our liberal society, and I don't mean politically liberal, our liberal society, we hesitate to call things out for what they are. Maybe for fear of not being fair to groups of people. Well, here's the counter argument to that. The people these human rights violations in the name of their jihadist agendas, who are they being fair to? They do not deserve our empathy. The people who suffer because of them deserve our empathy. If we as a society can redirect our attention a little bit to understanding what I just said, and I challenge anybody to show where I'm wrong about what I'm saying, I'll gladly accept the critique and acknowledge if I'm wrong, but I think everybody here knows I'm right. So, God bless him and his program. That's all I got to say. Thank you, Norm. Amir, followed by Dave.
Hey, Gary. I think you've got an intermittent connection problem on your mic, by the way. I could sort of interpolate between what you're saying, but you're breaking up quite
I know. I screwed up. I apologize. I'm going to fix it while you're talking. Go talk for a couple seconds, and I will come back, and you will be able to hear me. And some people are going to say, darn, Amir, we were doing so well not having to listen again.
Right. Well, a great guest. Thanks for inviting Walid. That was very, very informative. That was very good. I just got a couple of points to make before I have a little criticism to what Vali was outlining as a model or a strategy. First point about what you said, it was actually the Basijis that were hit by Israel during that the first week or so, that window that I think was the second week actually. The issue was that it was not coordinated basically. What I mean is that Trump at that time had actually asked people to stay at home. Now, had that been done during January uprising, then the whole thing would have been very different. So the timing was not coordinated. When the Basijis were hit on the corners of the streets, the people were actually asked to stay at home. So that was the flaw there. The second point that I like to make was just something that Abby said about the drone factories in Iran. She's absolutely right. They were drone factories where it was set up by Israel apparently. And during that, I think it was a week or two that these were flown, and they were launched actually from the back of trucks within Iran, which had taken everybody, with the officials, by massive surprise, because they couldn't detect them coming inside from external borders. So this was kind of similar thing to the sort of what was it called, the pagers scenario. Exploding in amongst Hezbollah members. It was a similar sort of technique which had been worked on for years and years and years, and then it was actioned again. It was actioned at a time that it wasn't coordinated with other things. So, and I come to my main points regarding Walid June, as El called him. Now, what was missing, I think, in his model and in the strategy he outlined was the lack of solidarity, especially amongst Iranian diaspora. I mean, we have several sort of parties which are monarchists and constitutional monarchists and royalties and so on, as well as, a couple of dozens of Republican sort of parties which do not believe in monarchy. And we have also the national parties and, the lefties and the Mujahideen Khal and so on. And there is no effort at all to sort of coordinate or form some kind of solidarity amongst the diaspora outside Iran. And this is kind of reflected inside as well. So, if you manage to do a kind of create a solidarity outside Iran, then that will reflect inside as well. And that's very, very important. In fact, you cannot really recall a modern revolution that has been successful without having a solidarity, a solid solidarity in amongst the diaspora. Think about the Islamic Revolution itself. When Khomeini came to Paris, just about every single party left, I mean extreme left. These guys were, the Fadais, for example, Fadaiyan Khalq, they were the Mujahideen Khalq, what they call Benli Mazhabi. They were people who were Islamic, but they were nationalists. They were people who were 100% Islamic. All of these guys, they basically put their allegiance with Khomeini, completely aligned themselves with Khomeini, and the technocrats were the spokesperson, the spokespeople for him. That is why we actually had the Guadeloupe in January 1979 amongst the French, the Germans, the British and the Americans. That is the time that they decided to back Khomeini. And why? Because they could see the revolution is getting out of the hands of Shah, and this is the potential of the countries to go to the Russians, the Soviet Union at the time. So they thought, let's back him. Now, if the solidarity had not been there, they would not have done that. Now, that's very, very important, and this is an important lesson for Reza Pahlavi, who is claiming to be the leader for the opposition during the transition period. Now, if there is no solidarity, Trump is not going to back you, and that's a very important message. And I think that is why Trump basically looked for someone within Iran to replace the current regime, rather than sort of put his chips on external, because there is no solidarity behind it. And if you look at other revolutions, more contemporary ones than the Islamic Revolution, you will see the same thing. I mean, we had the solidarity movement, the typical one in Poland, and in there, what you had the Communist Party, the Lech Wałęsa, who was the leader of the workers, this was a communist people which didn't even believe in God. They were in solidarity with the church, and Church of Poland is more Catholic than the Rome. So you can see, and everybody in the middle basically gathered together and gathered behind Lech Wałęsa, and that's how they managed to win that revolution. Similar sort of thing in Serbia, the Otpor movement. I remember that well because I used to be a student at the time, and they had their slogans all over the university. We have, enough. We want to live now. I think that was one of the main slogans that they had. And in Poland, they had a slogan that there is no freedom without solidarity. At the time of Islamic Revolution, we had the slogan, the Shah must go. Very simple slogan, and this is the sort of thing that you need to gather people around, and that's very, very important in a successful revolution. You need to have the right slogan, you need to have a solidarity and a leader and a movement, and that's how you can succeed. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Amir. I was referring to Waris Deary. She was a Bond girl, actually, but more importantly, she was an ambassador at the United Nations against female genital mutilation for a number of years, and that's when I met her. And she really touched me with her story. I put two links. One, a CNN report about her story. The other, the Wikipedia write-up on her in the chat, which is linked above. Thank you, Amir. We'll go to Dave, followed by Murad.
He lists who are the jihadists. These like Hamas, ISIS, Houthis, and Hezbollah. And then he also talked about the new formation of anti-jihadists. And they are from different parts of Middle East, Europe, North America, right? So if we look at the world map right now, if we exclude the war going on between Ukraine and Russia, much of the trouble in the world right now are caused by jihadists, right? And both in Nigeria, in North, in Middle East, and the question is, this jihadist is anti-West, anti-America, anti-Jews, anti-Zionist, right? So once we get rid of them, we get rid the root of the problem, and we will have world peace. And the way how these jihadists work is, when they look at the map, they infiltrate the left, right? Many left are infiltrated by this. And we see this in what the Walid say, right? And also what El Norma say, right? He was, El Norma regretted that he voted for Obama, voted for Biden, and he said treacherous, right? So this is why we see when Trump come back second term, he fired a lot of people. And potentially these are infiltrated by the ideology of jihadists. And so basically, once we are clear that jihadist is the root of anti-world peace, and now we are anti-jihadists, we are talking about the beginning of the end of anti-world peace. So we have to help the left to wake up from all the indoctrination, infiltration by jihadists. And by doing so, we will end up an important step to, lasting world peace. And the Ukraine and Russian war will just a matter of time. But the root of all problem right now in the world, anti-Jews, anti-Zionists, all these are the root of jihadists. And they infiltrated the left.
Hello,
You have to wait your turn, Miriam. Thank you, Gabe. We'll go to Murad, followed by Nasser.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, unfortunately, I lost the previous speech of Mr. Forrest, but I try to speak to the point about the strategy. Gary, my heart is deeply saddened by 50,000 Iranians slaughtered by the Iranian regime in the past. And in the past few days, this pain has been renewed. The 4 young American soldiers killed in Jordan by the brutal Iranian regime brought tears to my eyes, especially the innocent eyes of Isabella Gonzalez. But you know, yesterday we had two beautiful twin sisters in Iran, 20 years old, who were executed by this regime in Isfahan. But this is about the strategy. In my opinion, the further we go, the more deranged the Iranian regime's strategy will become. A regime with a sick ideology that instills in its people that I am the successor to the promised savior, and perhaps in the rightful place where I am sitting, the promised savior will appear this Friday to help you and me. So I see no obstacle to bomb Doha, Dubai, Kuwait, Manama, Riyadh. Even if the US military soldiers enter Bandar Abbas, I will shell the citizens of Bandar Abbas and American soldiers together with a clear conscience. In contrast, President Trump recently confirmed my claim in his words. We have not yet shown the Iranian regime anything. We have not shown the Iranian regime anything. Let us not forget that the United States even has technologies that it has stored for the next 50 years to unveil. This is a step-by-step war by the United States. The Abraham Lincoln is grinning on the deck and lower decks on the IRGC's speedboats. Just Musk's team is capable of disabling the entire IRGC's communication equipment. What is Trump's strategies that tolerates this regime animalistic nature to such an extent? I think that this war will continue for various reasons in the next 18 months until America being a state of severe war. And ultimately with a glorious victory. On severe war status, the US Supreme Court is convinced to keep Donald Trump in power and postpone the presidential election due to war conditions. But now let us all get past the Democrats and maintain our unity for the victory of freedom over terrorism. That's what I wanted to tell you, Gary. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, you had me until you talked about the possibility of suspending the elections because we didn't suspend elections during previous wars. There's no way we're going to be, I hope, it's suspending elections this time.
We're not going to suspend elections. We held elections during the midst of the revolution, during the midst of the Civil War. We will hold elections come rain or high water.
But I want to ask also, Murad, have you heard that the Brahimi
girls actually have been executed? Because the latest I heard is that they were tried in a kangaroo court, I think as recently as yesterday. But they and the 14 other people who were also tried, there were fears that they would be executed, but I have not been able to find anything that shows that they have thus far. Do you have information that I have not been able to find?
I saw on Instagram yesterday the news of execution of those twin sisters.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to hold off until we know for sure. Maybe it happened. I hope not. I will read you this paragraph so that people know to whom we are referring from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. And again, if I cough, I apologize. I don't know where this cough came from. Anyway, here's what they write. 16 people are facing charges connected to protests in the Iranian city of Isfahan in January, during which a colonel in Iran's Revolutionary Guard was killed. Rights defenders are raising concerns about the legitimacy of the case, including the charges against two young twin sisters, 20-year-old Tarena and Romina Rahimi. Sources in Iran told RFE RL's Radio Farda, I think that's a Farsi broadcasting entity from Radio Free Europe, that authorities use torture to extract confessions from the defendants, and there are concerns that they might face the death penalty. Maybe they have already, and the word has not made it to the media as of yet. Let's pray that they have not. Horrible. Thank you, Murad. The real genocide is against their own people in Iran. More people killed in a 2-month period than 2 years in Gaza. Think about that. And who's being called a war criminal? Nasser, followed by Miriam. Nasser.
Are you talking?
Sorry, my microphone was not opening.
That's okay. I think a lot of people are suffering little technical glitches today. It's okay.
Yes, thanks, Gary, for the time and letting me to speak on this stage. And hello, everyone in the room. For the first and foremost sentence that I'm gonna refer to as the President Trump's recent words about people who are asking the foreigners or the foreign countries to bomb their own country. He says, I hate people who want their own country bombed. They're such stupid and idiot people. So unfortunately, we are dealing with those type of Farsi-speaking so-called Iranians who unfortunately there are my country's people, and they come to your stage and they justify the war against their own country and their own people. Shame on them.
What are you talking about? No, sir. What are you talking about?
Oh, Miriam, you gotta wait your turn.
I'm also from Iran.
I know you are, and I want to hear what you have to say. But I will now, because this is our protocol, ask the same question. Nasser, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about people who are justifying strikes and attacks to
Mariam.
Yeah.
Let me handle it, okay? Please? I'm the moderator, not you.
Gary,
Nasser,
I don't even want to talk to these kind of people.
Well, either you're gonna explain yourself, which I'm giving you the form.
Which kind of
Mariam,
I don't want to talk to traders.
Nasser,
these people are traders to their own homeland.
Do the Iranian people who come here feel like they have to take over the moderation of the room, no matter their position? Do you want to take over? Do you want me to give you a hat? Nasser, do you want to run the room?
No, I don't.
Okay, Mariam, do you want to run the room?
No, not sir.
Okay, okay. Wait your turn, please. I don't think it's asking a lot. Nasser, please try to explain what you're saying, because I am as confused by your position as is Miriam, although I may not yet be as disgusted as her, but I'll give you the opportunity to bring me to that point. Go.
Yes, please interrupt my words.
I'm not letting them interrupt your words. I'm asking you for your words.
Okay, please. Because when someone interrupts me, all those...
I don't want you to talk about how the room is run. I want to hear your point. Get to the point, please.
Okay, my point is, first of all, as an Iranian, and most of the Iranian people inside Iran, we haven't give any power of attorney to U.S. and the Israeli government, IDF and
Have
US
you given
Army.
power to the regime that's killing people by the tens of
Now
thousands?
you are interrupting me.
I am moderating, Nasser.
I know, but
okay. So as the moderator, as the person running the room, I'm having a dialogue with you.
Okay.
Okay. Did the people of Iran authorize the Islamic Republic of Iran's mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard and the Basij to kill over 50,000 people in 2 months?
First of all, the number 50,000 people is a big propaganda that...
Okay, thank you. Mariam, followed by Soren.
Sir, you're lying like a bitch.
See, you could see. See, did I handle it okay, Mariam?
Yes, you did.
Okay, go ahead with your point now.
No, I don't want to, because he's so fucking...
Everybody who heard him knows that was bullshit propaganda coming out of his mouth.
This
Everybody
is a
knows that.
bullshit idea.
Right. But go ahead with your point that you initially wanted.
He just doesn't recognize that people were died. People that I know were died. And he's just saying, no, these were like people that we don't know who they were.
Right, but you didn't come up to the stage to talk about him.
I'm talking about the realization that I have seen with my own eyes. Are you serious? What's your point?
What's your point, please, Miriam? When you first came up to the stage, this was not in your mind. Please tell us what was in your mind. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
My point is that for the decades, this Islamic regime has ruined our life forever and ever. Like from the beginning, when I was like a little kid, they ruined our life. They just implanted something in our mind that it's not true. Like death to America, death to Israel, death to whatever. And this man is actually the same people that I am very scared of, because they are saying the same thing right now in front of my eyes. Even after 47 years, they are saying the same things. And it's not okay. You should not allow them to talk at all, because they are fanatics.
Right, but Miriam,
they are telling
Miriam, people have to reveal themselves to me. And as you saw, the minute the nonsense came out of his mouth, he was shut down. So you trust me. I'm not going to allow for that kind of propagandizing here. Not on this, not here. Maybe on other rooms on Clubhouse, or if he wants to open his own room on Clubhouse, he could do that.
I don't even know him. I'm telling you, I know his mindset. This is the people that say this to America.
Okay, did you listen? I'm going to try one last time.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, did you listen? No. Wait, Miriam, I'm going to ask you a specific question, if you don't mind, please. Did you listen? Did you hear and listen to Waleed Ferris, and what did you think about what
he's saying bullshit.
Waleed Ferris said bullshit too? Well, how so?
All bullshit.
What did he say that was bullshit? One thing.
I don't want to. I actually don't want to comment on that.
All right. If you're gonna accuse somebody of saying bullshit on the stage, and then I ask you what it is that you object to, I think you're obligated, since you made the accusation, to explain what upset you about what he said. Because if he misled us in any way, and you have knowledge that he did, then we would appreciate it if you had taken the opportunity when presented to set the record straight, but you just lost that opportunity. And hey, this is the group who listened to him, so this is the group who you should want to hear your voice, and I don't know why you did not take advantage of that. But I will move on to Soren, followed by Philip.
Look, I'd like to start.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, just 1 second. Gary, I think you misunderstood. She was actually talking about the previous speaker.
She was not listening carefully to me then, Amir. Soren, it's your turn.
Look, I'd like to start with sending the condolences to the families of innocent schoolgirls just recently.
I know, I feel the same way. Thank you for expressing your condolences. Philip, followed by him.
Hi, thank you so much, Gary. You know, I really appreciate the way that you give all sides, an opportunity to speak and try and understand what the truth is. And the truth is not easy to find, of course. I am concerned though, because I've heard several speakers in the room, including yourself, say that 52 or 53,000 people were executed by the Iranian regime. And I'm just wondering if you actually have fact-checked that, because it's not a completely verified true statement. According to the Iranian regime, around 3,000 people have been executed.
Hey, wait a minute. Hold on, Philip. Are you going to go by the numbers that the perpetrators give?
No, of course not. I'm just saying they say. They say around 3,000, and they say 53,000 people have been detained. But I mean,
no. If you read Time Magazine, if you read Iran International, if you read the reporting of various different news organizations, if you read the independent verifications from a number of human rights activists, of course their numbers are going to be higher than the official regime figures. You are absolutely correct in saying the regime, the people who actually pulled the trigger, claim that they killed over 3,100 people because they were rioters and foreigners who interfered in the internal workings of Iran. Now, you can perhaps counterbalance the 50,000 figure with the Iranian figure. I would say probably the truth is somewhere in between the two, and I would give more credence to the outside observers who are trying. And of course, it's going to be unverified. Who's your source? You want to verify how many people are dead? Normally, you go to the government. When a plane crashes, you go to the cops and you say, how many people died in the plane crash? That's verifiable. But when it's the government killing the people, you have a closed society, of course the numbers are unverifiable. But it's, on the low end, they're saying 30,000 to 36,000 people in a 2-day period only. January 8th through the 9th were killed.
I appreciate you sort of clarifying and justifying, that's...
I'm not justifying, I'm just saying that what credibility is there in what the Iranian government tells us about the number of people who were killed? How can you go there?
I want to see you as a kind of a credible source, and not saying simply as a fact that 53,000 people
Okay, I will put it this way. Credible news organizations have quoted higher numbers on the number of people who were killed. The more moderate number that is being used by Time Magazine and Iran International is that 30,000 to 36,500 people were killed in a 2-day period, and this was verified. That's all the numbers that they could verify in spite of an internet blackout. So if you want to argue, no, it wasn't 36,000, it was 35,000, or it was 30,000, or it was 20,000. I'm going to quote Hillary Clinton. What difference does it make? They still perpetuated a genocide on their people. If in your country, your government killed, quote unquote, only 3,100 people who were protesting over a 2-day period, would you say, it's only 3,200?
No, of course not. I said
okay, so why do you even bring it up?
Because I don't like to hear misinformation in this room.
Well, it's not misinformation.
It is if you state as a fact that 53 or allow other people to search.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to rewind, and I would ask, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to disregard when I said 50 to 52,000 people were killed. And I would like you to readjust your thinking to believe that what I said, the proper wordage that I should have used, and Philip is exactly right, 50,000 people were reportedly killed. That is accurate.
And then my last point is just you can't fight fire with fire, and violence begets violence. So give peace a chance.
Okay, that's good. When the guy is pointing a gun at me, and he's going to kill me, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sing, all we are saying is give peace a chance. Amir.
Phillips.
Remember how they clapped during that song? I'm still clapping because I can't remember the rest of the words.
Yes, you did very well. I think Philip's comment, if we were to follow his line, I think the world would be ruled by the Hitlers of our time. It's very simple that you cannot just have peaceful without when a person against you is about to kill you. Anyway, that's that point. So that's just a romantic nonsense, if you don't mind me saying, Philip. So my point, 2 points about the speaker Nasser that came here. I just wanted to mention that I have come across people like Nasser quite a lot. They fall into 2 categories. The first category is the NIAC. It's a very famous National Iranian American Council. They are funded by the IR. I'm not suggesting that Nasser is, by the way. I mean, you can give me thumbs down all day, Nasser, but that's a fact. NIAC is funded by the Islamic Republic, and they are lobbyists at the Congress, and they're very well placed people. I mean, these guys work at top companies, top multinationals in America as well. So they have a lot of influence. So beware of NIAC, National Iranian American Council. That's the first category. The second category are basically the people, Iranian people on the left, who are prepared to sacrifice the country and the people for their fight against imperialism. And they see America as the arch enemy. They're the same people who supported Saddam against America, the same people who supported Gaddafi, and anyone who rises against capitalism and imperialism, these guys come into the arena. And that's he cannot fall out of one of those 2 groups. It's either that or he's directly being funded by Islamic Republic. I reject both of those, except the fact that he is very much on the left, and he is prepared to sacrifice Iran and the Iranian people for his ideology, which is dead against capitalism and imperialism. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Amir. Mariam, I brought you back up to give you a second opportunity, but please speak to what I asked you about what Waleed brought to the table today. Waleed, the guest.
Sir, I have not been listening for the past half an hour. So
Okay.
So let me listen a little bit so I know what are you talking about at the moment. Okay.
Okay. Well, it's the end of the show for the week, but we're on this.
Is that okay for you?
We're on that. That's okay, but it's the end of the show for the week. But this is the kind of thing that we talk about every day almost here in the Critical Thinking Forum. So I invite you to come back. Folks, we are here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York time. So until 5 o'clock New York time on Monday, for the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum, everyone be well, and as John Leno and Yoko Ono would tell us, peace out.
That's what's up. Awesome. I don't know who Fahim is. Will, you want to come up or you still?
Okay, so first of all, know the definition of whataboutism. Whataboutism was if I'm bringing something to avoid your criticism, and then no, I'm answering your criticism.
You showed me a video of random kids who had just, every single kid is homeless.
Okay.
And got